Caring for a Greek goddess. I never thought that the Greek goddess would have such a profound and lasting effect on my life. Just like Van Gogh, I fell in love with her. Her gifts are priceless. She is a symbol of memories and hope and renewal. And to this day, I am forever changed in her garden. Perennial means that it comes back year after year. The iris is a perennial flower. She is also a Greek goddess. Planting a perennial is worth the money. You could call it a nice little investment. It multiplies, it's easy to care for, and it returns bigger and better year after year. And once you've made this investment, surely you're going to want to protect it. Am I right?
Yes.
Knowledge is good, such as how to plant and care for an iris, why the iris is referred to as a Greek goddess, and some interesting facts about Van Gogh. But more importantly, I would like to tell you also about why I am so fond of this flower. The iris is a strong, resilient flower. It's easy to grow. It takes little care. You really can't hurt it. You could just pull it up out of the ground and chuck it in the corner and it will grow regardless. So that's why it's so resilient. You need to remember though that it does need sunshine and it does need to be planted, so don't do that. Ray Allen, AmericanMeadows.com, he's a respected retailer of flower seeds. He has helped many people all over North America for 30 years to learn about irises. That's his specialty. He wrote an article called All About Irises, and in this article he gives some basic, simple tips on how to care for an iris, such as how to plant an iris with some very specifics, how to divide an iris and when you should do this, mulching and its importance, and how and when to fertilize. By following Ray's helpful tips along with my expertise, you too can have healthy irises that will be beautiful all summer long. So irises prefer their roots, they're called rhizomes, to be half buried. So they like to be buried slightly above the earth. It's a very common mistake for people to plant them too deeply. And if you do this, they won't bloom. When you are dividing these rhizomes, you should dig them up, and you can use a sharp knife to do this. And it's easy because they aren't deep in the ground. And you should do this after they are bloomed. And you should deadhead them, which is a really good way to keep them growing and flourishing. Deadheading means to cut the old blooms off, and you should cut the stem that bloom has been on at an angle. One of the other things that is really important to do is to mulch, and you should mulch around the base of the plant. This is to help retain moisture, and especially in hot, dry weather. Fertilizing is also important, and you should do this in the spring. It's really important to use flower fertilizer. My tip, to save my eggshells, I crush them up and sprinkle them around the base, and it seems to work pretty well. One healthy clump of rhizomes, planted correctly, will flourish and grow. For example, I have divided my irises many, many times, and they still grow and bloom and look great. One precautionary note that you might want to remember is if you are giving or receiving any kind of plant, especially a perennial, you should check the roots to make sure that there's no pests or snails. One snail can ruin a whole garden and overpopulate it. The bearded iris, the Greek goddess, for which I am speaking, is one of 4 main types of irises. You will know that you will follow these great tips correctly when you see these results. They grow 27 to 41 inches tall. They have beautiful fragrant blooms, 4 to 7 inches across. They are called the bearded iris because of their long beard that grows in the middle of the bloom, protruding out from the center of the blossom. They have long, slender-like, sword-like leaves which stay green all summer long, which makes it great to put in a garden because it fills in space really well. You also will see the roots or the rhizomes multiply, and then you can divide them and share them with others. So caring for your Greek goddess is really very simple. Now you have learned how to protect your investment so it will grow and multiply. So let's explore some of those myths that I've talked to you about a little bit earlier surrounding this flower. Greek mythology tells of the Greek goddess. Her name is Iris. She rides on the rainbow and provides passageway between death and the afterworld. This myth is deeply rooted in the Greek culture. Julie Martin Fournier, writer and blogger of PerinoResource.com, wrote an article entitled Iris Flower Meanings. There's some fascinating insights into these myths and traditions of Iris. She tells in there that Greek goddess is the name of the rainbow, that the Greeks have named their rainbow Iris, and she does travel on a rainbow from heaven to earth. Tradition has it the Greeks plant irises on the graves of their loved ones, and this is to symbolize that they are calling her to come and escort their loved ones back to heaven. Although the iris is usually not used as in religious symbols, it is often used in traditional gardens to honor the Virgin Mary. This is because the leaves look like swords, which resemble the sword-like sorrow that she felt at the death of her son. Irises also have been used in art for many centuries. For example, Van Gogh's famous painting, Irises, sold for over 35 million. Some interesting facts about Van Gogh and that famous painting I was telling you about. He was into self-mutilating, and he was hospitalized countless times throughout his life. He chose, though, to admit himself to an insane asylum, and while he was there, he painted over 130 paintings. And in that first week, he painted his famous painting, Irises. He used the nature of the garden around the asylum as his visual inspiration. So, clear throughout centuries, we can see that it is very important, that your iris has been very important in tradition and culture, giving hope and inspiration to many. All this from a seemingly common flower. I'll bet you'll never look at an iris the same again. Now my favorite subject, the green thumb gardener, my mother-in-law, and my friend Florine Crable. She gave me my first iris, and she taught me how to garden and by simple example, hard work, and gratitude. I inherited her gratitude journal, and in this she wrote a lot of appreciation. She's expressed a lot of appreciation about gardening and the simple things in life. She wrote 1,545 gratefuls. So I'd like to share some of these sentiments with you. Number 140, grateful for the tools I have to work in my garden. Something so simple. I remember visiting her garden, and she used to tell me about all the names of her plants. And she did have irises, and she loved each one. She knew the names of the different irises also. So I'm grateful for her knowledge and her gifts of gardening, her work ethics, the patience and the gratitude, and the simple things. So here's another sentiment, number 219. Grateful for Jerry's interest in the same things that interest me, gardening. I am just realizing that the lessons that the Green Thumb Gardener taught me was reiterated in an interview I had with a friend and master gardener, Sheila Pickering. She shared with me her thoughts about gardening and what an iris represents to her. It's wise advice to last a lifetime. Here's the first quote. Plants radiate something to us so you can feel their spirits. Another quote. An iris is like a promise of life and death, a promise of the plant. It works in the pattern of the whole creation. It is like the Creator gave us a symbol to remind us of renewal. I have the Green Thumb Gardener's white iris. It was her very favorite. It's a reminder and a symbol of her love and grateful heart for gardening. Every spring, when the Greek goddess makes her appearance, I can just hear Florine saying, "Oh, Jerry, isn't she just beautiful?" Hopefully, I've been successful in planting a visual picture of the simplicity, the mystery, and the beauty of this flower. But more importantly, the lessons that I've learned about caring for a Greek goddess, how I have been changed through the nurturing of a perennial garden. Every year at springtime, she arrives resilient, strong, and renewed. Through seasons of life, I am the recipient of her priceless gifts. She is blessing me still with what was and what is to come. She adorns my table with the sweetest of memories, a promise of hope and renewal. I am forever changed in her garden.